Most journalists would not disclose their sources.
Does he know y'all have this in the doc?
This is the moment that made people believe something massive was being hidden in plain sight. Old clips resurfaced. Interviews people forgot about suddenly started trending again. And within days, names like Justin Bieber, Ellen DeGeneres, and 50 Cent were all being pulled into the same conversation surrounding Jeffrey Epstein. But this time felt different, because it wasn't just random speculation. People started saying there were documents behind it, that something official had quietly confirmed what no one was supposed to notice. And that's where everything changed. Because once people think there's proof, they stop questioning the story. They start building on it. But when you trace this narrative back to the beginning, it doesn't start with evidence. It starts with a shift in trust. After Epstein's case went global, the way people look at power completely changed. Figures who were once untouchable suddenly became questionable. Every connection started to feel suspicious. Every past interaction started getting re-examined under a new lens. And there is one part that's important to understand. The Department of Justice did release massive amounts of material connected to Epstein over time. Documents, testimonies, investigations. That part is real. But here's where things start to break apart. Not every name trending online was actually in those files. And that didn't stop the narrative from growing.
Trust nobody. In Hollywood specifically, when you get there, a lot of people don't know how to say no. That's the difference between New York City.
Because once people believe something is hidden, they start seeing it everywhere. And that's exactly what happened next. The story didn't come from one source. It came from fragments, short clips, old interviews, moments taken out of context and stitched together into something that felt complete. And one name that kept showing up in those conversations was 50 Cent. Now, this is where things get complicated. 50 Cent has built his entire image on speaking openly about the industry. He calls people out. He questions power. He's made it clear more than once that what happens behind the scenes isn't always what people think. But he rarely says things directly. He hints. He implies. He lets people connect the dots themselves. And in today's environment, that's enough to trigger something bigger. Because once people believe someone knows something, every past statement starts getting reinterpreted. Old comments suddenly feel like clues. General observations start sounding like warnings. And before you realize it, speculation starts turning into something that feels like fact. But everything escalates the moment Justin Bieber enters the conversation. Because now the tone shifts completely. Justin Bieber didn't just rise to fame. He was launched into it. At around 13 years old, he went from a normal life into one of the most controlled, high-pressure environments in the world. Overnight, he was surrounded by powerful figures, constant attention, and expectations most adults wouldn't be able to handle.
I wanted to be a good example, and it was hard for me.
And over time, people started noticing something. Not evidence of a specific event, but patterns in behavior. Old interviews where he looked uncomfortable. Moments where his responses felt forced. Interactions that, at the time, were dismissed as normal, but now feel different when people watch them back. And that's where the questions begin. Because once people sense something is off, they start trying to explain it. And that's how narratives form. Then another name gets pulled into it, Ellen DeGeneres. For years, Ellen represented something very specific in the public eye: positivity, control, safety. Her show was designed to make people feel comfortable. Celebrities went there to relax, to laugh, to be seen in a different light. But that image didn't stay intact. In 2020, reports started coming out about what was happening behind the scenes. Allegations of a toxic workplace began to surface. Employees spoke up, and suddenly the perception of Ellen began to shift. And when that happens, people start looking backward. Old interviews don't feel the same anymore. Moments that once seemed harmless start getting reinterpreted. And that's where the escalation begins. Because once public trust breaks, everything connected to that person gets questioned too.
About your birthday party, am I invited?
Yes. Yes, you're definitely invited. I invite you to all my parties, you just haven't seemed to show up.
Not because of confirmed evidence tied to Epstein, but because of association, because of influence, because of proximity to power. And this is how the internet builds stories, not from one piece of proof, but from layers of connection. And this is where things take another turn, because Epstein's case didn't just expose individuals, it exposed a system, a network that operated in ways most people didn't fully understand. And after that, something changed permanently. doubt became the default. Now every private event feels suspicious. Every exclusive circle feels like it might be hiding something. And that's how figures like Diddy get pulled into the conversation. Here's the key detail. Diddy has always been associated with high-level industry gatherings, private parties, exclusive environments. That's part of his image. That's part of the culture around him. But in this new climate, that kind of exclusivity raises questions, because people start asking what actually happens in spaces where cameras aren't allowed. Who controls access? Who gets invited? And what stays hidden? Old clips of Diddy interacting with Justin Bieber started resurfacing. At the time, they were seen as normal. Industry talk, mentorship, casual moments between a young artist and someone established.
I'm good. How are you? All right, young brother, everything's good? Selling out arenas and everything? Starting to act different, huh? You ain't been called.
But now, those same clips are being watched differently. Every line, every reaction, every small detail gets analyzed. And this is where the line starts to blur. Because interpretation is not evidence. But when enough people interpret something the same way, it starts to feel real. If you're following this so far, you already see where this is going. And this is exactly the kind of breakdown we do here on Spotlight. Because once a narrative reaches that point, it doesn't slow down. It accelerates. Now, this is where the timeline becomes critical. Justin Bieber has spoken publicly about struggling with fame, about pressure, about feeling lost at certain points in his career, about not always having the right people around him. Those statements are real. They exist. But what they mean depends entirely on how you interpret them. Some people hear those words and see confirmation of something deeper. Others see the reality of growing up too fast in an industry that demands everything from you. And that difference is where everything splits. Because once interpretation replaces evidence, the story can go anywhere. There's another layer to this. Bieber has also talked about wanting to protect younger artists, about not wanting others to go through what he experienced.
His son a Bentley, maybe, he could buy you one also while you're out.
He got me a Lamborghini.
Oh, well, that's nice.
I haven't gotten it yet, though.
Yeah.
And when people hear that, they don't just hear concern. They hear implication. They connect it back to everything they've already been seeing. But that's where things get complicated again, because experience doesn't automatically point to a specific cause. Concern doesn't confirm a hidden event. And this is the distinction most people stop making. Now step back and look at everything together. A global scandal that exposed real abuse of power. A public that no longer trusts powerful figures. Old clips being re-examined under a new lens. And voices like 50 Cent speaking broadly about how the industry works. When all of that collides, you don't just curiosity. You get narratives. Stories that feel complete, even when key pieces are missing. And that's exactly what happened here. Because despite everything being said, there is still no verified evidence placing Justin Bieber on Epstein's island. No confirmed report linking Ellen DeGeneres to that kind of activity in this context. And no direct statement from 50 Cent making the specific claims people are attaching to him. And that detail changes everything. Because once you remove that assumption,
The entire story shifts. What looked like exposure becomes speculation. What felt like confirmation becomes interpretation. And repetition is what makes it dangerous. Because when something gets repeated enough times, it stops feeling like a theory. It starts feeling like truth. And this is where the real implication begins. This isn't just about Bieber, or Ellen, or 50 Cent. It's about how information moves now, how quickly narratives form, how easily connections are made, and how difficult it becomes to separate what's proven from what's assumed. Because the internet doesn't wait for confirmation. It builds meaning in real time. And once a story takes hold, it doesn't need evidence to survive. It just needs attention. So what actually happened here? Not a hidden document exposing everything, not a confirmed link tying all these names together, but something just as powerful. A moment where distrust, real industry issues, and viral speculation collided at the same time. And when that happens, people don't just look for answers, they start creating them. And maybe that's the part no one is really questioning. Not what's true, but how easily people are willing to believe something before it ever is.